stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet. Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Left Behind Starforged podcast. I'm Midnight Jester, and last episode we had a little bit of a kind of like slower momentum, a little bit of a slower burn kind of story that we were doing, but that's not to say that nothing happened. Last time we started off with Emile giving Vert and Dash some not exactly desperately needed medical attention, but some needed medical attention. At the very least, Dash had an injured leg, and Vert had just been inside of a building collapse and needed a good medical workup to make sure that they were doing okay. And when Emile gave that workup, they found that Vert's armor definitely protected him from the worst of the building collapse. Like, Vert was fine. However, Vert was carrying a comlink on him that has inside Ironside, the android that they had with them, Dash's life's work. It was all stored inside of Vert's comlink, and that was indeed damaged in the building collapse. It's at the point where Ironside cannot be accessed. Now, Emile and Dash did some research to determine that Ironside was seemingly undamaged in there, at least mostly undamaged, but the comlink itself was basically destroyed. So in order to fetch him, they were going to have to get him out of the comlink and into probably his old chassis that Dash had previously tried to make work and was unable to. Anyway, they got through all of that, and Emile told them, like, hey, I gotta focus on getting Fern back to their home world. Vert and Dash were not so receptive to that idea. Vert and Dash really want to get off this planet. They've been stranded here for a while. It's a dangerous place. They just want to go. Emile ignores that, works with Fern to search for caves that would match Fern's old home. Like, this is back in the time before they were captured by the Reacher. They found a suitable place, went inside, found a fissure network that connects to various other caves, and found like this is as close as we're going to get to. This is basically like the home you had before you were captured. But when they got there, Emile was able to convince Fern that, hey, you know what? I think your real home is actually back on the Stardust. Why don't you stick around with me? And Fern agreed, but did warn Emile that before it could truly be home, they were going to have to deal with the situation of the captain. The captain has got something dangerous going on with his connection to the Wooden Heart, and Fern needs that to be dealt with. Now, meanwhile, in other sections of the episode, the captain was getting closer to both Vert and Dash. They in fact even introduced themselves as being named Zoya Silva. And over the course of the episode, Zoya did everything he could to appear just like a pretty innocent and undangerous person. He copped to a small crime, saying like, yeah, I got caught and it was a bad idea, but definitely played up not being that dangerous. And between this and Emile kind of ticking them off about not leaving the planet, Vert and Dash decided that maybe they'd have a better ally in Zoya. And when we finished the episode, Emile was just coming back to the ship just in time to find that Vert and Dash had cracked the security, and Vert had indeed opened up the energy barrier that was keeping the captain, Zoya Silva, in their cell. And so we come back to this episode with that idea that Emile sees just in time that the captain, this dangerous person that Fern does not want to even be on the ship anymore, at least not under the influence of the Wooden Heart, has been released. But before we get to that exact moment, I want to put a small vignette. It's almost like a little bit of kind of a retcon. I was realizing when I was going over my thoughts to what happened last episode, I wanted to give a little bit more justification for the moment that Vert and Dash let the captain out. Now, to be 100% square with you, this was not something I thought of at the time. It's not like I'm just trying to clarify something that was always in my head when it happened, but more let's add some context to, sure, they may not be happy with Emile, but why specifically let the prisoner out? And so we're going to have a little bit of a vignette that gives some context to that. So this just goes back a little bit, not too long, shortly before they let the captain out of their cell. I see the two of them as in one of the kind of relatively dark hallways, because we're still on a planet with no sun. This isn't, well, not no sun, but the sun is completely blocked out. They're in some relatively dark hallways. There are no windows to even that dim light outside. You know, it's all metal walkways and jagged edges, and not a very friendly place to be. When I imagine this sort of ship, I imagine the kind of cut-cornered, harsh corridors of, like, a ship you might see in the Alien franchise. Or at the very least, like, Battlestar Galactica. But anyhow, the two of them are standing here having a conversation, and it is regarding leaving the planet. So Dash says to Vert, or rather, let's start Vert saying to Dash, "Dash, it's been several hours."
"Yes, it has."
"I was just out there. There's a lot of fucked up shit ready to just kind of rip you apart. It's pretty dangerous. I don't know if we can count on the scrawny dude to make it back. I mean, he wasn't exactly carrying the type of gear I was. It might just be the two of us here again, and how long do you want to wait before we do something about that?"
"Do something like what? What exactly are you saying?"
"I'm saying it's high time we get off this fucking... We've been stranded here forever. We have our ticket off, a fully working ship. We're just sitting here on it."
"I feel like I need to remind you that neither of us is exactly a very capable pilot, and well, the last time we tried, it put us in this predicament to begin with, so I'm not exactly very keen to try again. I'd rather gamble on his arrival back."
"Well, I mean, we're not actually the only two on this ship. I mean, I don't know. I know we've both been talking to the prisoner a little bit, and I don't know what he's told you, but he told me he used to be the captain of some other ship. I mean, he's got to know something about flying it. That seems worth a shot to me."
"What, releasing him and having him take over the controls?"
"What I'm saying is I like those chances a lot more than I like the chances of Emile even getting back here. Look, he seemed nice enough, but I don't think he's got what it takes to be a survivor up against some of the creatures I've seen. They'll rip him to shreds."
"Well, and I suppose there's the other thing."
"What other thing?"
"And I was going to keep this to myself in order to just keep things civil and get us off the planet, but if he's not looking to be our way off, then, well, I might as well share. I got a message while you were at the facility. Once the signal opened up, I was able to see a message from the rest of the Vault Hunters. Apparently, Emile Spencer has been named public enemy #1 as far as we're concerned."
"Well, that seals it right there. I mean, fuck him, even if he is coming back. Let's just take the ship and get out of here." And with that right away, like mid-sentence, Vert is already just heading down the hallway. We can see that Dash has... It's mostly concealed, but there's like a little bit of a smirk on his face as he realizes that it's not going to be his doing. His hands are clean enough that he can rest easy tonight knowing like, oh, it was just Vert's going to let the prisoner out, even though this is what Dash really wanted all along. And then, of course, we fade back into where we actually left off, with Zoya having actually been released from the cell. Now, let's do the typical. We've now done the vignette. We've given a little bit more context to everything that's going on. We'll take the +1 momentum. So for reference, our momentum this session is starting off at a +6. Everybody's there in the room, and it's a tense moment of silence where all eyes are just kind of darting around. Nobody really wants to make the first move, including Zoya. Like, Zoya hasn't even stepped out of the cell yet, because everybody is kind of assessing the situation for, like, how is this going to go? Because in particular, Vert and Dash have never even seen Emile and Zoya interact with each other. They certainly don't know the full context of, like, how Zoya got in the cell, or exactly how Emile treats him or anything. They've never been in the same room all together before. Emile is, of course, terrified. He doesn't know that Zoya has been that the wooden heart has left Zoya more to their own devices. He's expecting the same kind of just completely juiced up out of control being that he encountered before, and he's not seeing that. I want to see if Emile is maybe able to determine like that something is different, because that'll of course affect the way he interacts moving forward. I'm just going to do this as an oracle roll. I'm not even going to, it's not so interesting of a question to me that I feel like it's worth making like a wits move or something like that. He's not securing an advantage. He's not aware enough, I think, to make a kind of active move like that. But I'm going to put this as like an unlikely ask the oracle, because I do think you'd have to be really perceptive to tell the difference. I guess his eyes aren't glowing, and that was classically a thing that happens when, so that actually is a relatively obvious thing. I've changed my mind. Instead of unlikely, it's going to be likely. It's a tense moment, so he still might not notice that kind of detail, but Emile's pretty perceptive. But yeah, like back in the day when the wooden heart was taken over, there was always a glow to the eyes, and if that's not there, Emile will definitely notice that difference. So, in the heat of the moment, does Emile note that the captain's eyes aren't glowing, and as a result, the wooden heart must not be in control? Yes. Very yes. A yes enough that actually, the only way that wouldn't have been yes is on small chance. I rolled an 11 out of 100, so even on unlikely that I had originally determined, that would have worked. So Emile definitely determines that and realizes, okay, if the wooden heart is not in control, then that presumably means that, like, I think the wheels in Emile's head are turning, and it presumably means that Emile is not as, like, unsafe as he was when this was, like, the avatar of a god. But with that conversation that he just had with Fern freshly on the mind, I think he is still wary of the idea that, like, what if the god resumes control? So I think the first thing he's going to do is just, I don't think this is a roll, but just a little bit of role-playing first. I think Emile is just going to flat out ask the room, like, what the hell's going on here? Why are you letting him out of the cell? And like this, I think the question just kind of lingers in the open air for a moment. And Vert responds, I was getting tired of waiting for you to come back, quite frankly. This is a guy who could get us off the planet. And I told you before, we are ready to go. Well, look, I'm right here right now. Close that goddamn door again, and I'll happily fly you off this planet, the way it's supposed to be. I'll even leave behind this whole idea that you were about to maroon Fern and I. I'm willing to let that go, because I'm just such a nice guy, but it's gonna require you to close that door right this instant. Hang on. No hanging on. You're not letting out a prisoner. And let's do this as... Well, here's the question. Like, I want to make this... it sounds like I'm making a compel roll. I'm doing a command, which is with iron, which is not likely to go very well. It sounds like a compel roll, but there is this lingering question of, like, if the door is open, the captain's been waiting for this moment. I don't think the captain would just sit there and just let themselves be closed back in. So I kind of want this to be almost like an opposed sort of thing. Now, there's no system, there's no mechanism in this system to literally have, like, the captain and Emile roll off against each other to be better convincing. But in the fiction, I think Zoya is indeed, like, going to step out of the cell and just be like, oh, well, hold on now, I definitely don't agree to that. All things considered, I'd much rather be on the outside for that kind of a journey. It's not like I'm going to be able to go anywhere. We're all in this ship together. You and you, I do not think you understand the type of person you're talking to here. This, and Emile gestures up and down at Zoya, and there's, like, backing up from him, like, doing everything he can to demonstrate, like, he is intimidated by Zoya despite everything that he's doing. Because Emile, I think, understands what Zoya's putting down right now. Emile sees behind the curtain and knows, like, oh no, I'm going to reveal this wolf inside the sheep's clothing. Every posture that Emile is taking is trying to demonstrate this is a dangerous person. I think that'll ultimately be what the compel roll is about. He may be doing everything he can right now to play the innocent, But this person here could easily take everybody in this room the instant that they want to. You have no idea the lengths that I had to go through to even get him in that cell to begin with. I don't think I could again. But the three of us together could maybe get him inside right now. Help me get him back in the cell, and we'll all survive this journey. So yeah, let's indeed do that as the compel roll. The compel is not about closing him in the cell because the captain has taken that off the table. He's stepped out, he's not inside anymore. But at the very least, step one is just compelling everybody. Well, I guess it's compelling everybody to try and get him back in the cell. And I suppose this is now more of a heart move than an iron move, because Emile did pivot from the command of, close the cell now, which there's no way that would have worked, into more of the heartfelt, like, you don't understand, this guy is dangerous. So yeah, it's definitely not a lie or anything, but we are, well, I don't know. Okay, the wording is, heart is charm, pacify, encourage, or barter. Iron is threaten or incite. I do think that's closer to a heart roll than an iron roll. He's certainly not threatening. He's not being intimidating himself, but he is trying to play up the idea of intimidation. But considering he's trying to demonstrate that he is intimidated, I think that's just too polar opposite of what iron is supposed to represent. So it is, I guess it's closest to the idea of charming them to his cause and encouraging them to see it his way. Yeah, okay. Let's do this as a heart roll. I don't think that there's anything in particular adding to this, so here we go. We get... Holy shit. Miss with a match, double 10 complication. My action die rolled a 1. The worst possible outcome. Wasn't even close. And no, my momentum is 6. Well, it's a double 10 complication. No momentum could ever cancel it out, but double 10 miss with a match. I cannot see this as anything else but a complete reversal. I feel like if anybody's going in this prison cell, it's going to now be the three of them against Emile, right? I have to really make that hurt. I don't think I'll have any chance to resist getting in the cell because indeed, particularly with as physical of a character as Vert is, Emile doesn't have a chance. I think the only thing that he's got on his side right now is I'm going to make or potentially has on his side, I'm going to do an oracle roll right now to determine... This is just a 50-50 shot. Is Fern in the room right now? Or is Fern elsewhere, in the cockpit or something? So I'm asking the Oracle 50-50, is Fern in the room with them? No. Okay. We might be doing a Die Hard with Fern or something to rescue Emile. I actually really like that idea. Emile has no chance to resist whatsoever. He cannot take all of them. He gets thrown into that same cell. It's Shark's old cell, so maybe he'll get an opportunity to better read up on more of Shark's stuff that he left behind. But totally thrown in there. The cell is closed, and I think with double 10 complication, they're savvy enough, particularly Dash, who is a tech savvy. Dash is totally going to rob him of his computer or anything like that. He knows that Emile could totally use that to hack his way back out immediately, and that's not the way this works. And I think that's what makes this a double 10 complication, is Emile is completely manhandled, stripped of his gear, not of his clothing. He's not naked in there or anything, but certainly feels naked in the sense of he doesn't have any of his resources available. Certainly if he had to do any kind I'm going to automatically say that check his gear. Yes, the supply on the ship right now is 5, but as long as Emile is in the cell, it's as if he's got basically nothing. I'm going to treat it as a supply of 0 for that circumstance because he doesn't have access to the rest of the supply. But I'm not going to make him mark unprepared and have the moment. I'm not going to do all that. But yes, Emile is in the cell, unable to get out, but he does have an ally on the outside. Fern... Let's say, for the sake of kind of the narrative, that Fern is on their way in there and kind of overhears from the outside and knows this is what's happening. Here's the scuffle, but it's too late. It's as they're throwing him in there, Emile's crying out and everything. Fern was too slow to get there because Fern moves slowly. Only sees the very end, where the person that they know is very dangerous, they just made Emile swear a vow about. The captain is on the outside and is working with Vert and Dash, throws Emile in the cell and locks him up. I think Fern knows instinctively that, particularly with the captain being one of them, that's too much to take all at once. So, Fern is going to try and blend in, be stealthy and all of that. Now, here's the other thing that Emile and Fern have on their side. Because Fern wasn't in there, as far as they know, Emile's whole point was to leave Fern behind, to bring them home. They have no reason to think Fern is on this ship. They have every reason to think that Fern is on the planet. If they leave behind, that they got nobody to worry about. Man, I kind of want to give Fern stats and just full on do this as a session. Let's do it. You know what? Fuck it. I like bending the rules to be an interesting session. I'm not going to give them a vow or anything like that. They're not. It's kind of like when we were playing as Vert. I'm just going to have raw stats. I'm not going to have them working towards a vow or anything like that. We're just going to work on the narrative and probably try and get back to Emile as quickly as possible. But for now, let's say if I'm putting it like a player character stats, Edge would definitely be 1. Since Edge reflects swiftness and things like that, and we've always talked about how slow Fern is, Edge is one of the 1 stats. Probably Iron as well. I can't imagine. Well, unless we consider Iron to be... Actually, yeah, Iron is probably one of the high ones because it's wrapped up in Fern's case with like magnetism and stuff. That's how they function physically, and they're actually pretty powerful at that. So we'll say Iron is a 3. Shadow will definitely be one of the 2 because they can shift colors and everything like that. So that leaves Wits and Heart. I'd say Heart is the other 1 stat because they're only recently kind of this level of intelligence. They don't really have the same kind of social skills. So Edge 1, Heart 1, Iron... Well, I'm still waffling between Iron being the 3 or Shadow being the 3. But between Iron and Shadow, there's a 3 and a 2. And then Wits is a 2. Let's see. What are they better at? Hiding or... Well, okay, you know what? Here's the tiebreaker on that and why Iron should be the 3. The thing that Fern helps us with as a bond, it's not stealth. It's metal manipulation. And if we're rolling that into Iron, then Iron is the 3, Shadow is the 2. Okay, so those are the stats. We've made a character. Only for these purposes right now. Going ahead in the future, when Emile is in control, we're just going to treat Fern like the bond that they are and not have them directly roll for things. But for the moment, Fern is on the ship and knows that they have to stay quiet, have to be stealthy, and get Emile back out of the cell. I think they're going... So let's make the first move a pretty important just... and I'm going to give Fern the same Emile's momentum. We're just going to treat that as all the same. It's the narrative momentum. It's shared between them. We're going to do it that way. Fern definitely needs to make a face danger with Shadow right now because they start leaving the room and Fern is not fast enough to like get somewhere completely different. So they need to just kind of make a wall up against one of the side walls, like blend in with the rest of this corridor, which is a relatively dark corridor. We were just describing it before. It's angular and mean and dark in here. Shouldn't be too hard. And then remove all of their color and just blend in with the wall as best as possible. Let them move past. So they should be pretty good at this. If we were doing assets or something, which I did do with Vert, I'm not going to do with Fern. They'd probably have some kind of stealthy asset, but as it is, I'm just going to do a flat Shadow roll. And let's see what they get. Holy fuck, another miss with a match, double 8 match. You fail or a momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events, pay the price. Okay, so let's see. It's not going to be that Fern winds up immediately thrown in the prison as well. For one, kind of hard to like toss them anywhere. They're amorphous and not as solid as Emile. It's kind of hard to manipulate them like that. So I've got a pretty good idea of like how they fit. Like they clearly, you know what the match probably is and why it's even a miss. The captain should probably take back over. Or the wooden heart rather. The wooden heart should maybe take back over. And like heightening a little bit of the senses. Like now that they're in control and Emile is in there. And most importantly, like the wooden heart, they've done their job now. Or the captain rather. The captain has done their job for the wooden heart. Emile, the person who knew better, is in prison, but they know that Fern is dangerous. Even though they were able to overcome Fern before, like Fern was quite a presence, and I think the wooden heart is aware enough of the situation to take control again and give that... I think it's a milder control. It's only in the background. It's not going to be a bright glow of the eyes, but a dim one. Maybe just the whites of Zoya's eyes get a little bit of a tinge of green to them, but it's subtle. Like, you'd have to be paying close attention, and in this kind of dark environment, it would be hard for people to do that. But the wooden heart is in control. Notice is that Fern is there because we're talking about godly perception. And the captain just stops in the middle of the hallway. I think they're probably in front because by everybody's reckoning, the captain is about to start flying the ship. So Vert and Dash are walking behind, and I think they even bump into the captain because it's a very sudden stop. And then the captain just slowly and kind of creepily just turns their head over to the side. Maybe even turns their head just like a little bit too far for like a human neck. And looks directly at Fern. And I think Fern, being so intimidated by the captain, and specifically the wooden heart, I think it's Fern that gives themselves up because they are too concerned about what's about to happen. They peel off from the wall thinking that they are about to be like burst into a bunch of pieces again, like before when the captain burst out from them. They don't want that to happen again. It doesn't kill a Feroid like Fern, but it's certainly very unpleasant. So Fern comes off the wall and reveals themselves, and Vert and Dash are like, "What the fuck?" Not in that voice because they use their own voices, but they're startled by it. The captain is not. But they are certainly shown here. And I think, let's see. So I think they're right outside of the cell right now. We're definitely going to make this a combat, but Fern's motivation here is not about defeating them in combat. The goal, the objective would definitely be about getting Emile out of his cell because Fern needs backup. They're not far away. We know, we've described before that since the system has been opened up, like Dash was able to hack through the protections that Emile had in place. And so it's as simple as a palm reader on the outside to open up the cell. Now, I don't think that Fern would be able to do that with just their... I think they don't have a humanoid enough hand, and I don't think that they can... The form that they take, even when Fern is in a more humanoid form, I don't think that they've got the kind of fine control to make it a full hand with 5 digits and everything. It's more of a pseudopod kind of thing. It's a long, blobby arm. It's just roughly humanoid shaped. So I don't think Fern could operate that. The question is there anything they could do from the outside? They could maybe try and manipulate... Okay, yeah, I think I know what Fern is going to try and do through this, but... That's not, it's not important to come up with a plan. What's important right now is to start this combat. So I was just kind of assessing, is that a reasonable objective? Like, is there any way that Fern really could pull that off? And I think the answer is yeah. I have a way in and we'll see if it happens. So we're going to enter the fray right now. We are definitely in the thick of it at close quarters, which is good for Fern because Fern's iron is the +3. I guess the only question would be, does this count as caught in a trap or sizing up the situation? Which would be a wits move, which is less good for Fern. It certainly wasn't a full-on trap. I think it is more fair, really, to say, like, it's either this or the heart of facing off against your foe. And so, let's see. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to be more mean to Fern right now and say this does sound a little bit more like facing off against your foe because they're not full-on grappling or anything like that. It's not that kind of like we're in the thick of it at close quarters. They are in close quarters, but they both became aware of each other before there's any kind of physical tussle, and that sounds to me more like facing off against your foe. Fern's not that great at that. We're going to be rolling a +1 on this, so let's enter the fray with heart. Oh, and let's see. The objective is to get Emile out of his cell. That'll be the first. This is probably the first combat we've done where there will be multiple objectives, because after doing that, the combat will still definitely be continuing. It'll just change to we'll be in control of Emile, and we'll set a new objective with its own rank. But I think, given Fern's tactic on this, which is going to be use metal manipulation to try and get Vert, who is in this power armor, which is all kinds of metal and stuff. We've talked all about it. That's nicely magnetic. We can do that to try and manipulate him into position to get his palm onto the reader and get Emile out of there. I think if Fern were just up against Vert, that would probably be troublesome, but because there are these two other very capable combatants, one of them is at least in light Avatar of God mode, this has got to be at least dangerous. Again, I'm not going to make it higher than that because he's not trying to like overwhelm them all physically. So that objective itself is just going to be dangerous. So let's see, this is the objective, I suppose, is get Emile released. Dangerous. And let's see, do we happen to be in control? We're rolling with heart. No ads or anything like that. We get. All right, we get a weak hit. I've been rolling a lot of 10s today, but thankfully the other one was a 1. So we either get the momentum or we're in control. Now, I think we are... I desperately want to stay in control. We've got relatively high momentum, in control by far. So I will take that. Fern still is the one to actually make the first move after realizing that, no, I've been spotted. Peels up off the wall and knows it's time to get shit done. And let's see, the captain wouldn't be wearing anything magnetic. They were stripped of their magnetic suit. Dash might be. But most importantly, the biggest, most physical bruiser of the one that Fern needs to manipulate is... Oh, actually, you know what? We know that Fern has the capability to try and, like, go inside of people and control them. We've seen them do this horrifying thing before. I do imagine that that is probably a bit time-consuming to do, though, and, like, leaves them a little bit too vulnerable with this many opponents around. I don't want to say Fern just can immediately do that. It's pretty powerful in the heat of the moment like this. I think it is going to have to be about the metal manipulation to magnetize the captain, Vert, where we want Vert to be. But they are still an amorphous blob, and they may not have to get fully inside of a person to still benefit from that. Like, what if Fern were able to get inside of Vert's armor, just like sloshing around on the inside? Because I imagine an armor that heavy is like, it takes some doings to get in and out of. But there are like, we know it's not completely, like there's no helmet in place or anything. I think that's what Fern is going to try and do. Get inside that armor. Be protected from everything else, because that could do it. Like that's a hell of a shell to be inside. I guess the question is just, is there enough room for Fern in there? And I'm going to leave that to be just kind of the results of the move. Like, if we don't roll well on it, maybe it's because there's just not enough room for Fern to really be inside. Like, Fern's like a pretty large amount of lava lamp goo. Takes up a lot of space. And I can't imagine that power armor is like... I don't think it has a lot of extra room in there. But there may be enough. Fern may be able to flatten out and go into all kinds of different directions. Let's see. Maybe there's some density manipulation. So we're in control. Fern is going to try and gain ground with... this is definitely a shadow move. We're hiding, preparing an ambush, or misdirecting. This is definitely hiding inside the armor. So perhaps moving in through like a boot ankle or something, because Fern doesn't move fast enough for me to really buy that they could... I think the way this looks, Fern turns on the magnetism a little bit to just pull Vert over as best as possible. Get them close by, pulled in, and then like just get inside the armor. Like we're not subsuming Vert, but we're just getting close enough and then crawling inside as best as we can. So because of that, because this is something that Emile would get a +1 when getting Fern's help, I am going to give this roll a +1. That seems fair enough to me. So we're going to roll Shadow with a +1 on this. We're just ad hocing rules left and right now. So 26 sessions in, I feel like we've earned the right to kind of play around a little bit. Let's mix it up. Shadow with a +1, and we get... Okay, a weak hit. So we stay in control. That's the most important part. So we can mark progress, take +2 momentum, or add +1 on our next move. I'm absolutely going to mark progress. I think Fern's best shot on this is to just hammer in on progress as quickly as possible. Like, get these done so we can try and just finish this off. Again, we have relatively high momentum, so I'm not worried about that. So everybody is just thrown off for the moment as, like, the bulky suit of Vert gets rocketed across the room. Maybe not rocketed, like Emile got rocketed because he was just so lightweight and everything. This is probably more of like awful squealing sounds as the metal boots just like drag along the floor. I see even sparks getting made by that because like this is some fucking armor just squealing and screeching and sparking against the floor. But it happens. I think that even that sound might have thrown off a little bit of like Dash's ability to participate and maybe even the captain's. Let's do a quick unlikely roll because we're trying to get ideas about weaknesses for the wooden heart, right? Could this be a classic, like awful squealing sounds like that they might be a little bit sensitive to? I'm even going to say small chance on it. I think, like, again, we're talking about a god here. I don't think something that mundane is going to be a real weakness. But small chance, was even the captain thrown off by that? Or the wooden heart, rather. Yes, actually. I rolled a 4 on that small chance. Okay. That is important to keep in mind. So it makes this awful squealing metallic sound. And it's not like making the captain go nuts and thrash about and like exercising it from the body. And I don't know if Fern was even aware of it, but we are. And we'll maybe be able to make use of that later. The wooden heart doesn't take too kindly to that kind of awful screeching noise. It at least throws them off a little bit. And maybe it's only in this form because they still have like mortal ears that are being thrown off by the, like, maybe it's only because of the connection to the captain, but at the moment, that squealing sound made them all cringe. And Fern gets inside the suit. Now, from in there, their perception of the world is not exactly wonderful, but it gives them a moment to coordinate their thoughts as Vert is like all kinds of, like, we can hear muffled from the outside, Vert just being like, oh shit, it's inside the suit. What the fuck is that? Get it out, get it out. They're like kind of flummoxed on what to do about this because like it's bulky armor. Like they can't even see Fern from the inside at the moment. So what would Fern do? Like, how can they move this forward? Because we've only known Fern's ability to bring metal closer. I don't know that Fern can repel by like reversing polarity on magnetization. I don't think that Fern would be able to do that. But Fern might be relatively strong, and inside the armor itself, maybe Fern would be able to just fill it out and like with pseudopod kind of legs, like just move the armor with Vert moving along with it. Like +3 iron. Fern would be pretty good at this. Like they just kind of manipulate their density and start moving the armor itself from the inside in a mechanized way over to, or I guess not even mechanized, but more, God, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like hydrodynamic or whatever, it doesn't matter. From the inside is just moving the legs, at least trying to as best as possible. Now, I'd love to see if we could maybe find a way to... Is there anything I could do here to try and gain a little bit more momentum? I suppose not really. I mean, momentum I could just gain based on how I do on this. Yeah, whatever. Let's do that. I guess the question is, do I get the +1 on this? Like, is there enough metal manipulation involved to benefit from that +1? And I lean towards no, because the metal is all around. The big question is, can Fern so control their magnetization that they could magnetize only from the back? Like, the back of the legs getting pulled forward. And I'm going to say 50-50 on this. We've never really seen just how precise Fern can be. It's usually been a pretty brute force thing. But again, this is one of the things they're good at when there are bonds. So 50-50, is Fern that level of precise that they could magnetize just the back of the leg forward and not the front? Yes. And again, I rolled a 3 on that, so even on small chance that would have worked. So yeah, Fern perhaps is discovering in this sort of like peril, and when everything is on the line and they know like this all has to count, like this is the only way to survive all of this, Fern finds new levels of ability to manipulate the environment. So we are going to roll this with a +1 from the metal manipulation. Fern tries with iron, just a direct gain ground, Gaining leverage with force, powering through, or making a threat. Definitely powering through. Like, this is very directly what this move is. Iron with a +1. Oh, you know what? It just occurred to me. It would not have made the difference. But when I made Fern's last shadow move, and the heart move before, all of the moves I've been making with Fern right now, I've been making with Emile's stats. Now, I just checked every single, because I've been doing this in a computer program and I forgot to change anything like this. It has never mattered. Every single one of the results would be exactly the same. The miss with the match would be the same. Enter the fray would be the same. The gain ground with shadow would be, every single one of these would be exactly the same. So it doesn't actually matter, but it does occur to me I need to keep that in mind moving forward. So, this one with iron, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to always do these with like the corresponding Emile stat to make it make sense. The only thing that'll be confusing is when I look back through the log later to try and have an idea of what happened when, but doesn't matter. That's a me problem. So let's do this. Gain ground, I'm going to tell the computer program I'm doing this with wits just so it does the right thing with a +1, and we get... Okay, this one is a strong hit. I didn't even need the +1 for that. We rolled much nicer on that. So we get to stay in control and choose 2 of them. Progress will definitely be one of them. And the other one, let's see, I could either get the +1 on my next move or the 2 momentum. Let's build this up. We're definitely ratcheting up the momentum here as Fern is moving. Like, it's still slow, but it's powerful. Like, I can just hear in the soundtrack right now, just the revving up beginning of I am Iron Man, burn, with just every slow step inside the suit. Anyway, so I think what's weird about this is the power armor usually protects against a lot of things and helps inertial dampening and everything, but that's all against threats from the outside. Vert has never had to contend with something that gets inside the armor before, and that's throwing them off enough that even though Fern moves slowly, I don't think they're able to contend with it quickly enough. And since Fern is encased in all of this armor, it's not that the others aren't acting. I think they're trying to come up with a plan, and like Dash and the captain are trying to think through and are like yelling at the captain about like ripping off their armor and everything, and so that they can get at Fern. It's all just a lot of mayhem and confusion about how to deal with the situation because it just takes so long. Like I really think getting out of this armor is quite a process. I think the captain is I keep screwing it up. I think Vert is probably starting to try that and like to at least get a little bit out there by like the biggest thing right now is they're not able to control their steps. They're probably like starting to try and lean over and get their boots, but I think Fern is even fighting that. Like if Fern is rigidly locking up the body, that keeps Vert from being able to even take off the armor, even though he wants to. Obviously he can say whatever he wants. His body isn't taken over, but the cocoon that he has surrounded himself in, that is. So I think from the outside we see like Dash and Zoya trying what they can to like take off the armor, but it's not their armor. It's complicated. They're not familiar with how to do it. They're trying to take instruction, but the whole time the thing is moving in front of them. Like it's not an ideal situation. As they're scrambling to like, I think they know exactly what the plan is as they see that Vert is slowly marching towards the cell. Like they know exactly what Fern is trying to do. And so they're trying to stop him, but they can't really get the boots off well enough to be able to get to Fern just yet anyway. And so momentum is definitely ratcheting towards getting Emile out of the cell. I marked 2 more progress on getting Emile released. We're now in the room with the cell. And I think... Let's see. So we know that before Vert was able to get Emile out. He clearly must have taken like his glove off to do that because I don't think the palm reader would work through the glove. But presumably he put it back on. Let's just say that's how it worked. Like he took it off, scanned his hand, put it back on when they were like getting ready to throw Emile in the cell and all of that. So in order for Fern to be able to release Emile from the cell, he's going to have to get this glove off, which is certainly going to expose him to some danger. But honestly, I think the biggest problem right now is the worry that the others are going to get the armor off, because then that gets Fern very vulnerable. So I think Fern is going to try and do this as a like 2-for-1 action. We know that they can be very specific with their metal manipulation now, right? So I think they're going to try and like move Vert's arm so that it's aimed directly above, like basically on Dash's head, because Fern figures they can more easily take care of Dash than the captain. Well, now he's more worried about, they're more worried about the captain. So move Vert's hand so that it's there right next to, like at point blank range of Zoya's head, who's like on the ground trying to get the boots off, comes from up above, and then is going to meta manipulate. Well, no, we couldn't. Again, that's repulsion. I was thinking we're going to try and blast the glove off right at his head, but that would be repulsion, not attraction. And the whole point is, even though we've got a lot of precision, we can only really do metal attraction. Unless we did enough like pressure buildup or something to blast it off, which maybe we could do that. I just wouldn't get the +1 from metal manipulation, but it would still be in, I guess at that point we'd be an edge move because this is kind of attacking at range. I can't just backhand him much as I want to because I don't think Fern is fast enough to really impart a lot of force into that, especially while Vert is on the inside trying to struggle against this relatively ineffectually. But let's say that, yeah, Fern starts collecting more and more and more and being more dense and expanding out, building up a pressure inside of the glove of that suit until it eventually fires off at the captain's head, like breaks whatever thing is keeping it on the wrist from the inside, fires off and tries to just like knock the captain out, or at least make them see stars for a little bit. So this is just going to be an edge roll, no +1 because this isn't the metal manipulation from that. Gaining ground by just... Actually, I suppose this is not gaining ground. This is a full-on strike. This is... We are in control and we're assaulting a foe at close quarters. Actually, yeah, which means it's iron. We're not attacking at a distance. I said we were getting the hand like basically right up against the head and then we're blasting it off. So this is an iron strike against the captain. Just boom, blast this glove off directly at their head, freeing a hand to be able to then eventually use on the palm reader. So let's do this iron move. Strike. And we get... Oh no. If only I had that +1. It came... Well, actually, that wouldn't have made a difference. I got another miss with a match. I rolled a 6 on my action die. Oh! Never mind. Nope. I made the same mistake as before. That was using Emile's iron, not Fern's iron. So rather than a +1, it's a +3. So glad I noticed that. This is the first time it would have made a difference. So I get a 9 total because I rolled a 6 on the action die, and it's against 2 8s. So this is actually success with a match. That is quite the swing of things. Or strong hit with a match, I should say. So we mark progress twice because this is a strike. You dominate your foe and stay in control. So first off, let's do that. That already gets us at 8 progress on this. Now I need the match on this to help. I could do it as simply as just giving progress one more time, but that's kind of boring, especially for a double 8. I want it to be more interesting than that. I think the match is just going to be... Like, it's still kind of boring, but it'll definitely help for when Emile is released from the cell. The match is that we definitely do knock Zoya out cold. It is in the right spot. It's super bad for you. Blood coming out, major concussion on the floor. We've seen how the wooden heart can get somebody back in action sooner than they should be with that kind of thing, but for now anyway, for this combat, the wooden heart is not going to be of a concern. They're not going to be able to revive, because this is a double 8, this is going to last a while. They're not going to be able to revive the captain. So we can hear like the crack of like a little bit of a skull fracture in there. This is a bad injury. On the floor, they're out cold. We have 8 out of 10 progress. I think I am indeed going to use this moment to, because we're still in control and I don't want to risk losing that. We are going to try and seize an objective in the fight to get Emile out, because the decisive action is indeed get it. It's the continual move. We're like close enough to the door. We can move some parts of the armor and not others to puppet Vert's arm from the inside to indeed get it on the pad and release Emile from the cell. Man, I really thought this was going to be much more of a Die Hard, as I said earlier, with sneaking around and getting Emile's equipment back and all of that. No, this became much more of a direct, like, all right, let's just seize control. So, yeah, let's try and seize that objective. We've got eight progress on this, and we get a 1 and a 4. That is a strong hit as ever there were. So, we get to have so we get +1 momentum, bringing us all the way up to a +9. If any objectives remain and the fight continues, you are in control, and they do. So, we're going to go back to being in control of Emile. Fern is certainly present, and if we make use of their capabilities, then we'll get the benefits of that. But Fern, fantastic job. What, man, just standing O for taking care of that situation. Fern, you are a scary monster when you want something done. Now, was I maybe being a little bit nice with the stats and stuff? Maybe, but I tried to counteract that with being a little bit mean in some ways. I also just happened to get a lot of, like, matches and shit like that. Anyhow, Emile is out of the cell. We need a new objective, because this... Well, I guess here's the question. Knowing that Fern has had that much domination from the inside and is still inside Vert's suit, and Emile is now free, and the captain is now down, Dash is left but isn't that much of a combatant and has a bum leg. Vert has not had a lot of luck taking over. Is this enough of a blow to morale? Like, are they really going to try and keep Emile inside the cell? Is it that important to them? And for that, let's do another Oracle roll, because it might be. But let's do a kind of morale check. It's just going to be 50-50. Do the remaining combatants try and keep Emile in his cell? Are they going to fight this any longer with the captain fully knocked out anyway? No, they are not. Okay, then the fight is over. I'm not going to make another objective. Whew. Okay. Once again, congratulations to you, Fern. So, I think Emile immediately seizes the opportunity to get out of that cell, and it's probably Dash who has his equipment. I'm going to put that as likely for which one of them has it. Let's see. So, likely that Dash has it. Does Dash have his equipment? The Oracle says no, actually. I just barely. A 76 through 100 is no, and I rolled a 76. So then I guess it's probably that Vert has it because they trust Vert to best be able to hold on to it, like just as a physical guy. I don't think they would give it to the captain. So at this point, I'm not even going to roll for it. So Vert is holding on to Emile's computer and all of that, and Emile rushes out of the cell and starts trying to grab at it, and I think Fern is basically like flexing the fingers open so that the captain can't hold on to it in any sort of way, and or it's probably not in his hands, it's like strapped onto him or something like that. Like, he wouldn't be holding it in that way. It's just like in like a compartment, or he's wearing it on his own belt, something like that. They just best trusted that Vert would be able to not lose it, like not have it seized from him, because it's valuable equipment and very useful. So Fern basically T-poses Vert so that Emile can get at the equipment, and he starts getting it all back with a look on his face like, we should be getting everybody else in the cell. Like, y'all have lost all of your privileges here. But I think he's still nervous that the captain is going to wake up and wants allies on his side. Like, let's see. Because on the one hand, it makes a lot of sense to just throw everybody in the cells together. Like, you did an unsuccessful mutiny, now you're all prisoners. But narratively, I'm less interested in that. Like, just I as a player am more interested in having more characters involved and not just, all right, throw more in the prison and we can forget about them. So out of the desire to make amends to the people of Concord, he wants these people to be more assured that he's really not a bad guy. And I think he's going to lean into that as he's getting his equipment back and pointedly says to Dash, you throw him in that cell now, and I will still get you home rather than vent you into space. And then I want you to remember all of this, because Emile Spencer is more forgiving than the Vault Hunters. Now that's probably a little bit of a stretch as far, like, it probably stretches credibility a little bit. but I'm standing by it. Sometimes people make stupid decisions, and I'm going to characterize this one as a stupid decision to not just throw them all in prison. But if Emile is anything, it's a guilty. He carries so much guilt for everything that happened on Concord that this is the way that he can sleep better at night, is truly believing that phrase, like that he is more forgiving than the Vault Hunters. Like, convincing himself of that helps him sit well with the idea that, yeah, maybe he's not a bad person, and he needs that. So, all of that said, is this worth a compel roll? I don't think so. I think basically the Oracle already told us that they're going to do what Emile says right now. They're not fighting back. So, Dash indeed does his best to start dragging the captain's body back into the cell. And they close it up, and they bring the door down, the energy wall back. Everything's sealed up and nice again. Emile, livid. We've never seen him this furious before, because he's never been on screen just betrayed to this level before. And I think he basically spits those words out to Dash, like, we had a deal. You told me. Looked me right in the eye. Well, I guess it wasn't right in the eye, it was over the radio, but you told me that you were willing to just put that all in the past and work together. And then I take a few hours to help a friend, and that's all it takes to go mutineering? Now, I can't stress enough to you how much I need you to be on my side with all of this. That man there, I don't know about the man himself, but he's being possessed by something. Something called the Wooden Heart. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it seems to be some kind of force beyond anything I can understand, something that's come back. And it's chosen the captain to be its puppet, its avatar, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's working through the captain. It is an incredibly dangerous force. And I've promised to rid its presence from this ship, but I don't think I can do it alone. I'm going to need everybody's help. And if I'm looking over my shoulder this whole time at all of you wondering when you're going to let him out again, there's no way I'm going to be able to defeat something with that kind of power. Quite frankly, I don't trust that cell to be able to keep them in. I think if the Wooden Heart really wants to, they're going to get out of there. But I need you to believe what I'm saying when I tell you in desperation, this is not something to fuck with. And maybe altogether, we can stop it from doing whatever malevolent thing it wants to do. So can I get your word, little as it means now? Can I get you to agree to leave the prisoner in the cell? This is so simple. Please. You want to treat him fairly. So do I. I don't want to take prisoners. I don't believe the captain, whoever that body belongs to, I haven't even gotten his name. And I think rigid arms still, Vert says, his name is Zoya Silva, for what it's worth. Fine. Zoya. I don't think that Zoya is necessarily worthy of being imprisoned. I don't know Zoya well. But the force inside, you better believe it needs to be kept in check. So can I get your help getting it out of Zoya? So that we can all just do the right thing together? Please. So, as you can probably imagine, that's all one big compel roll with heart. We're bartering, trying to get everybody on the same page here. Emile's making a heart roll. We have a nice high momentum. Vert being like in a little bit, wanting to kind of agree to anything to get Fern out of his suit. But I'm not going to mechanize that. So just regular old heart, no bonuses. Let's see what we get. All right, we get a strong hit anyway, and I don't even have to use any momentum. Relatively high dice, but even still came above it. They will do what you want or agree to your conditions, take +1 momentum. We are all the way at a max 10 momentum again. Everything is lining up as they I think it's indeed Vert basically saying what I just said of like, look, I'll do whatever you want. Just Get your friend out of my suit. Feels awful. And I think Emile waits for Dash to give the same kind of confirmation of like,
No, I believe you. I saw, at least I thought I saw, for a moment, there was something in his eyes in the darkness when we were leaving your cell. There was something there that I couldn't fully believe that I saw it, but like a little bit of a glow, ever so slight. I only saw it as he turned his head towards... He stopped in the hallway and turned his head. It was just the faintest green glow in his eyes. I thought maybe I was seeing things, but now I think maybe this was this entity you were talking about. I swear that I saw it lighting the wall just a little bit. I've seen that glow, and you weren't seeing things. That's the wooden heart. I believe you. What do we do? Well, I'll tell you, the first thing we do, Fern, why don't you come on out? And Fern indeed kind of comes back out the neck hole, and Vert's arms drop, and like he's so squicked out by it all. It's he feels oily and weird. It's like, God, I thought you were leaving that thing behind on the planet. That thing is named Fern, and they're my friends, and they decided that it was better to stay on the ship. And right now I'm feeling pretty glad that they made that decision. Thank you, Fern. Thank you for saving me. Second, however, and too long coming, I'm sure you're feeling, let's get this ship back into orbit. We'll decide from there. And indeed, Emile heads back to the controls and everything and launches the ship back off the unnamed planet and into orbit. I'm going to give myself the first bit of progress on ridding Emile and Fern of the wooden heart, because indeed that could have been way more problematic if Zoya is on the outside, but Zoya now continuing to be a prisoner and having convinced these two more people to help him in that cause, that's definitely worthy of progress. So we're going to hit the first mark of progress on that. They come out through the ash into orbit. Emile starts calculating coordinates and trajectories in order to make the journey back to Anubis, informing everybody that I don't know what weakness this wooden heart has, but I know where it lies, and there's a chance that the people on Anubis might know a little bit more about this. But as far as the journey to Anubis and what might happen when they get there, well, those are all questions for next time. Now, I'm still getting used to this sort of thing of having a full-on bond, but one of the little wrap-up things I'm going to do, the end of session move, reminds me that I should be checking in on relationship type stuff. One of the things on Develop Your Relationship involves standing with them against hardship. Now, I don't want to do this too often. I don't want everything to count, but also my Bonds Legacy track is only just getting started, so for this first time where Fern really on their own decided to try and defend Emile and did so successfully, getting control of the ship back, I am indeed going to develop that relationship. So because Fern is a dangerous vow, we get 2 more ticks on my Bonds Legacies track, which fills out that box, giving me access to 6 full experience. And as we talked about before, that experience is going to go towards getting a workshop on this ship. So I'm certainly going to do that between now and next session, and we're going to be able to start working on some long-term projects. Just a little bit of post-game wrap-up stuff to figure out there, and end of session sort of moves. But with that out of the way, play me out, music.